For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for more updates.
This is StratNewsGlobal. I'm Amitabh. Revi. Our guest today is Claude Arpi. Mr. Arpi, thank you so much for giving us the time, and it's good to see you in person after so many online discussions. Just wanted to get your sense, Mr. Arpi. There's been a lot of movement overall when you talk about the Australian Prime Minister Albanese being here, the Japanese Prime Minister Kishida being here, India-US relations have been progressing on various dimensions. There's a Quad. How do you see the challenge that is being posed to an aggressive rise that China is bringing about in the world?
I think the world is changing very fast, and it's, I think, one of the preamble of Mr. Xi Jinping and Putin's encounter 2 days back. They mentioned this. So their conclusion is that the world is going in their favor, and American so-called hegemony will be broken, and they will replace America. That's their perception. I don't think it is true, but it's a fact that the world is changing very, very fast. And I think it started with the COVID somehow, because it became a planetary issue. It's not restricted in one area. It started from Wuhan. It was started from a lab in Wuhan, which was paid partly by the French government, partly by the American government. And at that time, people were dreaming that China is a very good partner and we can trust. I don't think the French or the American would have financed a P4 lab in India. They would have not trusted India enough. But at that time, they trusted. So something changed with the COVID. It spread to all over the world. America was very badly affected. Here in India, maybe less, because people are cool about it, and there was no hard lockdown like in China later on. But the perception of China changed suddenly. And China started that unnecessary confrontation in Ladakh, in East Ladakh. Suddenly in 5 places they enter India's territory. For what? People say some of the PLA generals wanted to gain some strategic position, a few kilometers here and there, one finger here and there. Historically, these fingers on the Pangong Lake have never been a very highly strategic area. So my question is, why suddenly China's? But people started realizing that China is not it's a powerful country. They have developed tremendously. They have done a lot of R&D. They have all the latest gadgets in terms of drones, and but it's still a totalitarian regime which doesn't function like we in India function as a democracy. And you can criticize the West, you can criticize America. I'm the first one who often criticizes, but there's some freedom. You can kick out the government if you're not happy after 5 years. It's not the case in China, where Mr. Xi Jinping has got himself re-elected for the 3rd term. So I think there was awareness of China, and particularly in the business world, all the businessmen suddenly realized that they will not make all the money that they thought they would make. So everything changed. So, and it's true that it looks like the planet is boiling today. So it's very difficult for you're receiving many strategies, but they may be wrong sometimes or very often. We don't know what's going to happen. But if you look at the last 2 years, there was like an acceleration of planetary changes. And India has a role to play in it, because India had a more balanced views on everything, including the Ukraine war. So hopefully India will play a role. For 1 year, India is chairing the G20. Many leaders are coming to India. Already the foreign minister, September, the head of state will come. Let's see if all the head of state can come or not. But I think India, with a balanced view, can play a role in the future that China cannot play, in my views.
When you talk about India and China again, Mr. Arpi, there are talks, protracted talks going on about Ladakh, and two areas still friction points which have to be sorted out. Yet, in December last year, on a completely different sector in Arunachal and Yangtze, the Chinese try to make an incursion. What, can you explain that?
I can't explain because Chinese mind is very difficult to understand, but I think in Ladakh, at least few of the area which the Chinese had entered, an agreement has been found, and for the first time maps have been exchanged and detailed maps of where is the LAC. One of the issues, everyone speak about LAC, we write hundreds of thousands of articles on LAC, you have TV program on LACs, but where is the LAC? Where are the maps of the LACs? Maybe the army knows more, but it shows the Ladakh confrontation that LAC has never been fixed before. Agreed. So the Ladakh process, the 17 rounds of talk is interesting in a sense it has fixed some of the areas to remain to be fixed in Demchok and Depsang. Now, I think China wants to show that nothing has been fixed in Arunachal, in the eastern sector. So by trying their luck in Yangtze to change the status quo, where the Indian army has been standing for years, to change this, they want to remind India that there's never been an exchange of map and never been something which is fixed. So I think that was to point this. And there's 7-8 places in Arunachal where there's a disagreement, or now we call it difference of perception, whether it's in Samdongchu, in Longzhou, in Yangtze, and or at the tri-junction with Myanmar, and that. So in Subansari also there's 2-3 places. So China wanted to remind India that it's not solve the issue and we can also do tricks. It's much more difficult for them to do something in Ladakh after the 17 rounds of talk. And these 17 rounds of talk also, I think, have helped China as well as India, the armies of both countries, to know each other better. Because each of these rounds lasts for 15, 16, 17 hours till very early in the morning the next day. So the commanders get to know each other better. And they realize that India will not get bullied. I think in May of 2020, they thought that India would not react, but the government reacted, maybe a few days late, but they reacted very strongly, in the strongest way, in starting building an infrastructure and showing China that India would not get bullied and lose its territory like it has lost in the past.
What is your reading, Mr. Arpi, of moves in the American Congress and the Senate to pass a resolution recognizing Arunachal Pradesh as an Indian territory, condemning China's aggression?
It's only a resolution. They have just introduced that resolution. It has not been passed. True. So any MP can introduce a resolution in a Lok Sabha or like that. So my first question is why only one part of the border? Why only the McMahon Lane? What about Ladakh? What about Barautin Central Sector? What about other area or contentious area? And I think more importantly, maybe why not about Gilgit-Baltistan? Gilgit-Baltistan, everyone has forgotten that in 1948, in August of 1948, there was a UN resolution who said that these areas are part of the GNK of the Maharaja's territory. And the second part of the resolution was that if the Pakistani withdraw from the area they have occupied from October 47, if they withdraw from this place, there could be a plebiscite of the population. But the first part of the resolution, Pakistan doesn't seem to have forgotten that issue. The first part of the resolution, that all these areas belong to the state of the Maharaja. So the Americans should also point this if they want to introduce resolution. Now, it's easier to introduce resolution if you, on the other side of the Atlantic, then India has to face China. So India has faced China very well in Ladakh as well as in Arunachal and other areas in the border. That's not something small. That's to introduce a resolution in the U.S. I mean, it's good. There's no harm to it, but that is different than to face China 1-to-1.
On Tibet, Mr. Arpi, what's the latest on the debate over the Dalai Lama's succession? I mean, you have been for years advocating one possible solution to China not gaining control of that whole process.
Yeah, you see, China is an atheist, Marxist country. They don't believe in religion. Nobody can have a picture of Dalai Lama in Tibet, or if you have caught with a picture, you're immediately arrested. The monastery has become just for Chinese Han tourists. So there's no serious studies there, which is part of their philosophy. But at the same time, they want to nominate their own Dalai Lama, and they have passed a resolution, not a resolution, they have passed guidelines in 2007 giving details how the next Dalai Lama will be selected. And I think it's up to the Dalai Lama to decide. It's not up to the atheist communist country to decide where the next Dalai Lama will come. And I think Dalai Lama said that at the age of 90, now he's 88, he will publish the way he wants to come back. He can come back two ways. One is via reincarnation, means after he passed away, and he leaves some indication, some letters, or some Lama's visions, and find the reincarnation somewhere. It can be anywhere. Many times he said he will not be reincarnated in Tibet if Tibet is still under the Chinese yoke. So, and the second way is an emanation, which is he selects someone, one boy, and train him, groom him, initiate him as a future leader. So that would avoid the intervention of the China. But China is preparing to have their own 15 Dalai Lama, like they have their own 11 Pancham Lama. But this 11 Pancham Lama is, the people of Tibet do not recognize him as a Pancham Lama. He's more a party puppet that is being used. Though I think the Chinese also a little bit nervous. Traditionally, all these people that they have grown and the Communist Party, sometimes their strong nationalist aspiration comes out, and sometimes they turn against the party. It has happened with the 10th Dalai Lama, who wrote to Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai in 62, just before the war with India. They wrote 70,000 character petition. It's the strongest petition that the Communist Party has ever got. It's from 49 till today. But that boy had been grown by China, by the Communist Party. So they never know is Tibetan. That's why when they speak about having Tibetan special forces on the line of the special frontier force, which are part of the Indian army, not directly, but under the cabinet secretariat, they can't, because they can't trust. Actually, in Ladakh, the Ladakh experience was very interesting, because in August of 2020, the Tibetan troops helped to regain this Kailash range, which dominates the Spangur Gap and the Moldo, where the negotiation taking place, the Spangur Lake, and the road going to Rohtak, the main headquarters of the PLA. So it's the Tibetans who helped for getting these heights in Ladakh, and China was very, very upset about it. Many times when they had the confrontation, they scold the Tibetans, "You're a traitor, you're a Chinese, how can you serve the Indian government?" There's some video where they appeared. So they tried to start to also a special force with Tibetan, but now they don't speak about it. Since 1 year, they don't speak about it anymore in their media, because I think they realize that they can't trust the Tibetan ultimately.
They can't control.
They can't control, they can't trust. The Dalai Lama has to say a word, or the Dharamsala administration has to say a word, and this guy will... their loyalty is with the Dalai Lama first, not with the Communist Party.
Mr. Arpi, starting this conversation talking about Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping's meeting, how do you see that in the larger picture? What is China's aim? How does that...
I think Chinese, under Xi Jinping, they have put a 12-point peace program or possibility and everything. But I think it will not work. Only because ultimately the West do not trust Xi Jinping, do not trust Putin. So only if there's a possibility of peace coming back to Ukraine, India has bigger role. What I said at the beginning about the change of perception, the planetary change of perception of Chinese, first it was a benevolent, large country developing, and now it's not so benevolent anymore. And that it has percolated everywhere. And as a result, alliances are being built. India has become closer to Australia, to Japan, to America. And I think Xi Jinping realized this. Now the main issue is, for me, maybe I'm wrong because it's very difficult to predict anything, but it's the economic issue. If China is not able to do well, like China was doing, what about their BRI, their big project, or their CPEC, that China-Pakistan Economic Corridor? All their project abroad, or helping Nepal, or helping all India's neighbors, Sri Lanka, and like that. If they are not doing well materially, economically, how will this happen? And there will be also more resentment. Now the population of China is aging, huge problem, pension problem. Now, 2-3 days ago, there was in the Chinese media some possibility to increase the age of the working age, like in France. In France, the French, they will go to the street and demonstrate, but in China they can't. But still the resentment will be there. And the social security has been cut many places. It's becoming more and more difficult economically for China. In that perspective, I think the power of Mr. Xi Jinping is not full like we believe it is. And when you have only one person, everyone will target that person. Now, somehow he has eliminated all the other faction. We all remember that during the 20th Congress, Hu Jintao, the previous president of China, was asked to leave the Congress, and he was escorted out. He represents a very, very powerful league, a powerful faction of the party. So Xi Jinping has eliminated. He has created more problems. If he's not doing well, it will, these people will come back. And traditionally, there's always been upheaval, revolution, and all in China. We have seen it partially when during the very, very severe lockdown, the Chinese people went in the street with white sheets, and that was a way to contest and to protest. And as a result, Xi Jinping changed 180 degrees their lockdown policy. They said, no, it's not necessary. But you have to remember that in China, everything also is based on propaganda. They have absolutely 100% control over that machinery who runs the propaganda. But people are not fools, no? You can, I mean, like for Tibet, they said people are so happy. They resettle people in the village and they put smiling people. But people are no fools in China, like in India, like in France, like anywhere in the world. People know the reality. So propaganda has its limits and now is pervading everywhere. But you have to follow the party, like the PLA. You have to follow the party. So many things are changing very fast. And if economy is not doing well, Xi Jinping will have problem. He will not. He may not finish his third term. Let's see. But for negotiation, he cannot be a partner with the West because he's not trusted now. That's the difference between 2 years ago and today. India has a role to play, a big role to play, but it has to play it well. And for the time being, I think Dr. Jaishankar has been very good also, speaking very strongly about a border issue. You can't come in our territory, take our, even if it's 1 or 2 kilometers, and say, let's continue business as before. It is what was done by in the past, but India will not play that game anymore. Now China knows. And China has more respect, I think, for India today than it had 5 years ago.
So Claude Arpi, again, absolutely appreciate your time and sharing your experience and vast expertise with us. Thank you again so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. So if you like this video, do press the thumbs up on YouTube to follow our social media handles to get the latest. There's a Telegram channel that you can join for the latest that we put up on our website, or interviews like this with Mr. Claude Arpi on our YouTube site. This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh.